that's where the Sharks need to get to. They're a consistent team. And like I said, they're a top 4 team at the moment. But that's it at the moment.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Billy Slater Podcast. Thanks to Tab, fresh off the back of a massive season launch in Las Vegas. No Salty this week. He was over there getting in and amongst the festivities, but we'll welcome in Billy Slater. Bill, how good to have footy back on the TV.
Oh, it's fantastic, Sam, and thanks for jumping in the hot seat for Salty. He's over there holidaying in Vegas, and I don't know how he'd be feeling today. Obviously, the night after, or the morning after, the big event last night, there'd be a few sore heads, I'd imagine, and be a long trip back to Australia this week.
I spoke to him this morning. He was at the airport. The voice seemed a little bit croaky, whether that was from calling 2 games of footy or the extracurriculars after that, I'm not sure. But how good was the action on the field? I guess 4 games. What did you make of all of that we got to see on TV yesterday?
I think it's a great way to start our season. Firstly, like 5 months without footy, it's a long time, and we're just craving for a bit of rugby league, and that's what we got. I thought they were great spectacles. The teams are looking forward to playing, and when you play the first game of the season in this unique style, all the teams are watching. You're setting the standard for 2025 and the season that's in front of us. So every other NRL team will be back here in Australia watching those 4 teams go around. We obviously had the English Super League game between Warrington and Wigan, and also the Jillaroos playing against the England women's side as well. So, yeah, it was a great festival of rugby league. It feels a little bit like Magic Round to me, but because it's the first game of the year, because it's over in a foreign rugby league area, I think it just creates excitement for our game.
It looked like the England fans brought a good atmosphere as well to the game with obviously the Super League and then the Test match. But a little bit of talk this morning afterwards about maybe 4 games is too much. Did you think it was too much footy? The crowd obviously wasn't what it was in the Panthers-Sharks game compared to what it was to kick the proceedings off.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm sure the administration side of the game will look at all of these things and work out what exactly worked and what we can tinker with and how we can move forward. Some great business minds that run our game, and I'm sure they'll be dissecting the events over in Vegas and listening to all the press conferences, all the coaches, all the players. They're so upbeat about the event and the experience that they've had over the last couple of weeks. So I think there's so much positivity. We're always going to look for improvement and look for little things that we can improve and get better at. But I think all in all, it's a great way to start our season. And round 1 doesn't finish yesterday. Round 1 continues on, and obviously there's another handful of games this weekend, starting with the Roosters and the Broncos. So the season is just getting underway.
Well, the 2 games we did see from the NRL yesterday, obviously Penrith, they've set their standard very high again to kick the season off. Strong win over the Sharkies. Sharkies came back strong towards the back end of the game, but Penrith just know how to play those big moments, don't they, Bill?
They do, and the last 5 months we've been focusing on who they've lost. Luai, Fisher-Harris, Sunia Turuva, and they've lost some quality, but they're accustomed to losing quality every year, and you look at who they've got, and the likes of Yo, Cleary, Dylan Edwards, and the madman on the edge, who I thought was the best player on the field, Liam Martin. He was exceptional, to play 80 minutes in the first game of the season in the back row. And with the enthusiasm that he plays with, that's what they haven't lost. And they've got some young guys. I thought Jack Cole was great, playing his role, but the big guns stood up in the big moments. I thought Nathan Cleary, obviously coming off the back of a shoulder injury as well, and he wouldn't have done a full pre-season. So, they're going to be there abouts as well. They've got such a good system, and they've got so many good players that I don't think they're going to slip too much. And the opposition were a top 4 team. The Sharks are a quality outfit, and sure there was a bit of rust in their game, but it's only round 1. They're going to benefit from playing the best team in the competition, and they know exactly where they're at the moment.
You look at the Sharks, you mentioned the Sharks, and I heard you speaking about it earlier today, Bill, saying that this could be a potential grand final, what we saw yesterday afternoon. But the Sharks have been so consistent for over a decade, really. But Adam Fanua-Blake, the signing there, do you see that as potentially being a circuit breaker for them that can get them to that next level?
I think it can help them, but I think every other individual in that team needs to step up and look to be a premiership player. That's where the Sharks need to get to. They're a consistent team. And like I said, they're a top 4 team at the moment. But that's it at the moment. They haven't played in the grand final for 8 years. I don't think any of the players in this current Sharks team have played in that grand final in 2016. So, Adam Fanua-Blake is certainly going to instill a little bit of confidence in every one of them, but he's also going to bring in. We saw yesterday, when the game was on the line and the Sharks needed something, he provided a bit of spark and he provided points for the outfit. But like I said, everyone else has got to really lift and take that game to the next level. A little bit like what Nathan Cleary did yesterday, a little bit like what Isaiah Yeo did yesterday, Liam Martin, just that energy for long periods of time, and that class on the top of it to execute some plays. I think that's where the Sharks need to grow, and they've got the potential to do that. They've got the quality of player to take that next step and potentially make the grand final.
It was a great way to round out the Vegas extravaganza, but obviously the first NRL game was a really strong win for the Canberra Raiders over the Warriors. The Canberra Raiders just so physical up front and dominated the Warriors from the outset, Bill.
Well, one team dipped their toe in and the other team didn't dip their toe in. They jumped in. They jumped in the deep end. And the Raiders, Ricky Stewart said after the game that he wanted to make a real statement. His team wanted to make a real statement with a lot of experts tipping them to not just miss the finals but to run last. And Ricky Stewart's obviously used that as motivation, which is fair enough. And they went out there and they made a statement. They were more physical than their opposition. They defended better than their opposition, and they were first to the fight, so to speak. And I thought they were exceptional. Xavier Savage has looked like he's had a really big off season. He looks nice and fit. He looks strong. Ran the length off an intercept, but they're a team that are going to be hard to beat every week because they're prepared really well by Ricky Stewart, and they were well and truly the better side against the Warriors on the weekend.
Do you think they've found their spine now? You mentioned the forward pack and Tarpanet and Papali'i and Corey Horsburgh. They're so strong there, but another year into Ethan Strange, KO Weeks now at fullback, and Tom Starling, great starting at hooker alongside Jamal Fogarty, the experience. Do you think they've got that good balance between their spine and scoring points now, as well as the physicality they bring with that forward pack?
Yeah, I think KO Weeks was a real shining light for the Raiders last year. He had a great season. It was his first real full season at fullback, so it can be an intimidating position. You're often on your own back there, and you're really isolated. And I think he's handled that really well. He probably believes that that's his jersey now. And Ethan Strange is he's going to be one of our top line players for the next 10, 15 years. He's got that quality in him, and he's a really physical young player. And then he's got this old veteran, or he's probably not that old, but Jamal Fogarty, he's the glue that holds everyone together. He's got a wonderful kicking game. He's a strong defender, which is obviously what they base their game around, that defence. I think they've got a wonderful young spine, and if they can keep the physicality side of their game going, they're going to be in every game that they play, because our game is, as much as it is about skill and athleticism, there's a mental side to our game and there's a physical side to our game. And if you get that mental and physical side right, you're going to put yourself in the contest more times than not.
What did you make of the Warriors, Bill? It was so clear the missing Sean Johnson after his retirement. They struggled with the ball in hand. Obviously, first game of the season, there's always room for improvement. But did you see enough there that they can challenge for the top 8 this year?
Look, I think it's our game has a great ability to just check you every now and again, and just not so much a reality check, but it just puts you back in your seat, and you really have a good look in the mirror and see exactly where you're at. And the Warriors are in that position right now. I think defensively they got found out on the edges a little bit. They got some youth out there, and it's not easy to be consistently good defensively. You look at some of the great defensive centres and wingers in our game. Stephen Crichton comes to mind. Herbie Farnworth. They're consistent at all their habits in their game, and they just got found out on the edges where they were a little bit stepped back and a little bit not connected with their defensive line, and that's where the points came for the Raiders. And look, I think they will improve. I think they will get there. They've got some young talent in their halves, and that's going to take a little bit of time. Young Metcalf is coming off an injury from last year, and also he doesn't have that experienced player in Sean Johnson next to him. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time for the Warriors, but they're led well, and I think they're going to improve.
It was the first time that we've seen 4 games in Vegas, expanding on the 2 NRL games that we saw last year, and bringing the international game to Las Vegas as well. But pretty much only one team showed up, Bill, the Jillaroos, 90-4 over England. It does show, I suppose, the gap in class that you get between the Jillaroos and the Australian players and National Rugby League out here and what is happening in England.
Yeah, there can be a negative outlook on this contest, and fair enough, I suppose. But I just think it's a great reflection of where the women's game is in Australia and how professional it has become. It was a huge class difference, not just with the athleticism, but with the skill. Every time the Australian girls got the ball, they looked like they were going to score. And even when they didn't have the ball, occasionally off an England error, they were scoring points. So I just think it's a pat on the back for the Australian Rugby League women's tournament and how professional it has become and where it sits right now. And I think it's up to the other nations to lift their standards and raise the bar. The NRL has injected a whole heap of money into the women's rugby league area, and rightfully so, and we're seeing the results of that with their national team. So if we can get a few of the other nations, competing with the Australian girls, well, that's just going to raise the standard of the whole code worldwide, like it has with the men's game.
The other new addition to Vegas, the Super League, the Wigan Warriors and Warrington Wolves, and it was a former NRL star in Bevan French who absolutely lit the house on fire, Bill. And I saw him being spoken to on the strip during the build-up, and he said that there'd been opportunities for him to come back to the NRL, but based on what we saw from him yesterday, he wouldn't look amiss if he came back out to Australia.
No, he wouldn't. He's only 29, Bevan French. He seems like he's been around forever, and he played just under 50 games before he left the NRL. He played for Parramatta, and then went over to Wigan in the Super League, and he has not looked back, and he's not the first player that has just been sort of hovering around the NRL and then go over to the Super League and really succeed. It is played a little bit different over there. It's more of an attack mindset, and it probably doesn't have the quality of team across the whole competition. But he's a wonderful player, and not just yesterday. The last couple of World Club Challenges, he's really shined as well against the Penrith Panthers. So, there's no doubt that he would be of value to NRL clubs if they wanted to pick him up. But I think he's pretty happy over there. I think he's pretty settled at the Wigan Warriors. He's got great bloodlines, doesn't he? Nathan Blacklock is his uncle, and Preston Campbell is his cousin. So, fairly talented family that he comes from, and a try-scoring machine. In his career, he's played 149 games across the Super League and the NRL, and he scored 123 tries. So he's a real entertainer, and that's exactly what he did yesterday.
Away from Vegas now, Bill, and I guess one former Parramatta star to a current one, or a couple of them. Mitch Moses' deal at the back end announced on Friday for Parramatta that he was already on a 5-year contract, but a little pay rise for him, and removing the player options from his contract as well, which I guess is a big show of faith in Jason Riles and the Parramatta club. But Parramatta, I think they've got 5 or 6, half a dozen players that have got options in their contracts, which makes it difficult when you're future proofing. But it must be such a good vote of confidence, I guess, for those players to have Mitchell Moses locked down long term.
Yeah, I think it's good for the club. Jason Rolls he's a pretty smart man. He knows what's going on. I've played alongside Jason. I've been a player under his coaching, and he's put a whole heap of energy into his coaching. So what he's doing at Parramatta will be a long-term thing. His thought process will be long-term, and for a guy like Mitchell Moses to commit to the club for 5 years, like you said, he had already committed, but he's taken out a whole heap of get-out clauses. So he's there for the next 5 years. That's great for players who want to sign and play alongside Mitchell Moses, and he's one of the top-line halfbacks in our game. You can really build around those sort of players, and I think it's a great move by Jason Rolls and the Parramatta Eels to sign him away. He would be the guy that is going to take this team forward, and if they're going to win a premiership in the next 5 years, well, Mitchell Moses is going to have a whole heap to do with that. So I think it's a smart move, and then you'll get players that'll go there for probably what they're worth and not overs, just to go and play with quality players like Mitchell.
Mitchell Moses, I'm sure, will feature in the Billy M Awards prominently throughout the year. The votes are in from the first 2 games. We'll get to them very, very shortly. This is the Billy Slater Podcast, all thanks to Tab.
Fans always ask, Lozza, what was the best era of league? And I tell them, nothing beats the line-breaking, flick-passing, goose-stepping, Vegas-flying, turbo-try-scoring, origin drought-breaking, simply the best era of footy we're in right now. And with more market stats and insights, it's easy to enjoy the best era in footy with the best app in footy.
Tab. We're on.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Welcome back to the Billy Slater Podcast. Thanks to Tab. Going to have a look at the Billy M medal votes, the first ones for 2025. Bill, who did you have? First of all, who did you have there as the best team in Vegas? You've only got, I suppose, 2 to choose from.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this, Sam, and we can't give the award for round 1 just yet. So I think they're nominations. Let's call them nominations, all right? So I'm going to give 2 nominations, one from either game, and then at the back end of next week, after the official round 1, we'll give the award to the player of round 1. So a little bit different to what we have been doing, but it's a unique situation right now. The first nomination is going to go to Xavier Savage. Scored a couple of tries, was really strong with his game, and Ricky Stewart spoke after the game about the time that he spent with Xavier, and it hasn't all been roses. He's put him back into reserve grade. He's left him out of the team, and he's helped develop his game. It's really paying dividends now, and he looks like I said before. He looks like he's had a really big off season. I thought he was great in that first game against the Warriors. So Xavier Savage, he gets a nomination. And the other guy that I've mentioned before is Liam Martin. Look, there were so many great players in the Panthers team. They're 2 captains in Nathan Cleary and Isaiah Yeo. They always play well, but the effort that Liam Martin put in, there was a moment towards the end of the game, the 73rd minute. He kick chased like he did all game, really hard, put in a lot of effort and energy. And then the Sharks made a line break, and he turned and he chased back, and he actually saved the try. He made the tackle there. He just keeps going, Liam Martin. So he's going to get a nomination as well. So it'll be hard to beat those 2, but there's a few games this weekend that we'll consider as well.
The first name that you mentioned there, Xavier Savage, obviously Origin, a long, long way down the track, Bill, but is it I guess, encouraging for you that you've got the likes of Selwyn Cobbo and Xavier Coates, Murray Taulagi in the wings for those outside backs positions for Queensland, but now the likes of Xavier Savage that can start to push those guys?
Yeah, I hope that's a goal for Xavier. I really do. He's a wonderful young player, and Origin is not beyond him. It's certainly not right in front of him right now, but it's not beyond him in the future. And a young boy that grew up in far north Queensland, up in Cairns, Xavier Savage, he played all his footy up there, and I'm sure he grew up idolising and drawing inspiration from the Queensland Maroons team when he was a young fella, and I really hope that all Queensland players playing in the NRL have aspirations to play for the Maroons, and I'm sure they do, and I'm sure he would be no different. So I hope that's a goal in the future for him. But right now he's ticking a few boxes for the Raiders, and that's where your mind needs to sit.
Do you think the right call's been made on him for him to become a winger? Obviously came into first grade as a very young, very raw fullback, but seems to have found a home in the last couple of years out on the wing.
Yeah, I think so at the moment. I think so. And that there's still some areas to his game that he needs to look at and work on. Like we all seen the intercept try, which was fantastic. That was a great read and an instinctive play for him. But then he went for a couple of others towards the back end of that game as well, and they resulted in Warriors tries as well. So it's a game of consistency and a game of learning, and you never stop learning. So I'm sure Ricky Stewart and the coaching staff will be celebrating the good stuff that Xavier did for the team in the reviews, but there'll be also a couple of things that he'd need to work on, and that'll be constant throughout young players' careers.
He may have a week on the sideline too. The rap sheet out from the games yesterday. I think it was on Chanel Harris-Tavita, not sin-binned, but put on report a week for an early guilty plea. And Joseph Tapine as well could be missing a couple of weeks with an early guilty plea after the shoulder charge on Mitch Barnett. But other than that, Bill, very clean couple of games over in Vegas, which is good.
Yeah, it's good. And we're just getting into the season, and that's all a part of it. Like it's a physical game. Like the game of rugby league is a tough physical game, and the players they're all in to play it. I don't think any player's going out there to try and intentionally break the rules to cop weeks on the sideline. But that's just a nature of the game. You've got to be out. The game's got to police it somehow, and I think all in all it was played in the right spirit.
And the man, your other nomination, before we look at next week, and make sure you tune in next week to hear the other nominations and the Billy M points that get given out for round one. But Liam Martin, I mean, you mentioned it's a physical game. No one brings it quite like he does. And you've had to coach against him in State of Origin. How do you coach against a guy like that who clearly has no regard for his own body, puts it on the line every single time he takes a field?
Yeah, well, when you get to that level, Sam, everyone's like Liam Martin. Everyone's emptying their tank and then looking for reserves and then tapping into your heart. And that's what guys like Liam Martin do. That's why they're Origin players. That's why they get to that level. Both teams are full of those sort of traits, and it's just great to sit back in round one and watch a player like Liam Martin give his all. There would be players in the NRL with much more talent than players like Liam Martin, but that doesn't matter. Sometimes your talent is your courage, your effort, and how much energy you're willing to put in. And that's what he does every week. And I'm sure he's valued, and I'm sure he'll be celebrated within that Panthers team, because that's infectious within the team, and he's a real leader in that footy team at the moment.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
We've got a couple of listener questions for you, Billy, and you can send yours through to billyslaterpodcast at 9.com.au. The first one from Will, wearing his heart on his sleeve. Will, he says, "Hey, Billy, after Canberra's performance to start the season, do you think we could see them make finals in 2025?
Yeah, why not? I'm of the opinion that you can do anything. And, every footy team, every NRL team have got enough quality to have a successful season if they want to. Sometimes we undervalue that trait of want and determination and togetherness, and the Raiders look like they've got that. They look like that they play like that. They mightn't have the highest profile in key positions, but they're all willing to work in with the team. And if you do that and you commit to that tough part of the game, you'll put yourself in most contests. And that's what the Raiders are doing at the moment. So who am I to sit here and say that they couldn't play finals? Because they played like they did on the weekend. They're gonna put themselves up against most teams.
Another question here from Greg. He's asking, who is the toughest player you've ever played with or against?
Well, they're all tough. I don't think you play in the NRL if you haven't got some sort of toughness. And there's different toughness. There's your Shane Webke, Brett White, Petro Sivanasiva. There's that sort of toughness, that big, uncompromising front rower toughness. Then you've got your Jonathan Thurston. Like Jonathan Thurston doesn't get tagged with a toughness tag too often, but I'll tell you what, he was as tough as they come. Darren Lockyer was as tough as they come. Preston Campbell, I loved watching him play, and the commitment that he had to attack space with the footy. That's tough. That's a courage. But the guy that I think sits above everything, and I would call him the Trevor Gilmeister of our era, and that's Dallas Johnson. He was as tough as anything. I saw how he trained. I saw his commitment to his game. A little bit like Liam Martin, ability-wise in terms of athleticism and pure natural ability. Well, he probably wasn't gifted a whole heap in that category, but I'll tell you what, he got gifted a whole heap of toughness, and that's what he based his game around. He'd put his head where most people wouldn't even think about putting their feet, and when you're lacing your boots up alongside a guy like Dallas Johnson, you're well supported. So probably Dallas, probably the toughest guy that I've played alongside.
And they're the players that don't tend to get the raps as well that they probably deserve, but they're just as valuable to those winning teams as the guys that score 2 or 3 tries a game.
Well, you need them. Like I've spoken about, numerous times today, the game is a tough game. It's a hard game. It's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And if you don't have those sort of players in your team, and some of the players that I've played alongside, like Dallas Johnson, Dale Finucane, Ryan Hinchcliffe, those guys that are just uncompromising and they just do anything for the team, they're the ones that the players love playing alongside, and you really celebrate them within the footy club.
And the final question for today from our listeners, Bill, what's the most important skill for a fullback in the modern game? It's from Lewis.
Oh, Lewis. Well, the modern fullback has got to be good at so many things. They've got such a diverse role within the footy team now. And I think it's probably one of the great things about our code is you've got to be good at a lot of things. You've got to be able to pass, you've got to be able to run, you've got to have endurance, you've got to be able to tackle. There's not just any one skill, and that's not just fullbacks. That's pretty much every position on the field. You've got to be good at a whole heap of things. I think if you've got a good grasp of the game, if you've got a good understanding, I think that's the main thing. You've got to have a good understanding of the game. You can't just be fast. You can't just be a good ball player. You can't just be big and strong. You've got to have a good understanding of the game to play fullback now. Defensively, you're the captain of your defensive line, and you have to have a good understanding of numbers and where to put players. You've got to understand the attack of the opposition and give your team a benefit where they're going to flow their footy. And then with the ball, you've got to be able to nearly be another half as well as a runner. So I think if you understand the game and you use your mind in certain areas to put yourself in a position, I think that helps you, and that's probably, you can get away with not being the fastest guy, you can get away with not being the biggest guy, you can even get away with not having the greatest skill, but if you understand the game, you can put yourself in the game. So that's probably, it's a complicated answer, but that's probably the one thing that I'd be building if I was a young fullback is building that knowledge of the game and understand it.
It's a complicated a complicated answer for a complicated position to play, Bill. That's all the listener questions for today. Obviously, only 2 games to talk about from round 1 so far, but what are you looking forward to this weekend?
And we only have to wait, 4 days. Thursday, Broncos, Roosters. That's going to be a cracking game. I'm really looking forward to watching the Broncos this year. They've been ultra impressive in the preseason. The one thing that they have sharpened up on is their defence, and that was no surprise. Obviously, Michael Maguire's a a defensive-orientated coach. You know, he's won premierships over in the Super League off the back of the defence that he took over there. So, looking forward to watching the Broncos and seeing how they match up in the premiership season. And then the Sunday game, the Sunday afternoon, live and free on Channel 9, it's the Parramatta Eels up against the Melbourne Storm. And Craig Bellamy has not lost a round one game for something like 140 years. No, not that long, but 22 years maybe. So that's incredible. And he'll be looking to keep that streak alive. And his ex-assistant coach, Jason Riles,
say up against someone who knows him pretty well.
Yeah. So, Sunday afternoon footy is going to be a whopper as well.
Thanks, Billy. It's been fun. Salty will be back next week, assuming he's well rested after what would have been a big few days for him in Vegas. But Salty will be back next week. New episodes of the Billy Slater Podcast every Monday, thanks to Tab. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Sam. Cheers, mate.